Oh, I've done it. I hit all the buttons. Welcome to Tuesday training, my loves. Okay, we're streaming, we're recording. The waiting room is now, everybody's here. Shelly's here live with us. This is very exciting. Shelly, way to be like, hey, I'm in the chat. I love it. Nice to have you. Hey, Lori, good to see you too. How's everybody doing? Ready for some training? Oh yeah. Okay, so I heard a little birdie told me that we were going to have a specific topic today. This is very exciting. Maybe not. But I also have something on my mind too. Interestingly, from a similar same source, maybe. I have something I really want to talk to you guys about today, which is joint action, because it just makes such a huge difference in knowing where to start our treatment, where to look for the source instead of the symptoms. Like super big. So I want to talk about that with you today. And so for those of you who are here, awesome. For those of you who are able to come on camera, I always love it when I can look at you and interact with you. And if you can't, to totally get that, you're welcome to still be here and use the chat to communicate. If you want to ask a question, come off mute, talk to me. It's really it's not the Gina show. It's Tuesday training. So you guys get to come and talk and like, let me support you and feed you and serve you in the ways that I can so that you can go out and serve the world and do like amazing work more than you already are. Because I know you're already doing amazing work. If you've never been here before and you're like, what is she talking about? This is Tuesday training for practitioners, movement and manual practitioners alike. We meet on Tuesdays live to just talk shop and how can I support you with anatomy, physiology, functional anatomy, client work, messaging. We've had a couple really awesome conversations about working with partnering with other physicians, etc. Basically anything that you need support on or would like support on, I'm here for it. I'm Gina Schatz, I'm your host each Tuesday. And I developed the Schatz method clinically while I was working, doing the same things you guys do. So it's super fun to have a methodology to get me through from symptom to resolution. And I would love to impart that knowledge on you as well. So for those of you who are here for that, awesome. Anna's in the house. Welcome, Anna. It's nice to see you. So I wanted to talk joint action today. And I also hear that there may be some other questions already brewing. Is that true? Is there Anna's like, yeah, I'm here to ask a question. So let's start with our Q&A. And let's see if that leads us right into what I was already gonna, Anna, I feel like you were on my mind today. So it's no surprise to me that we are graced with your presence because I was gonna share something that you and I've been talking about a few weeks back. So let's hear it. What you want to start with your question, Anna? All right.
Okay. So hi, everybody.
Hi.
So yeah, Gina, I think I've got some of your DNA. So
I love it.
I'm not surprised. So I don't know if this is relevant to the group, but I checked in with Lori and she thought, yeah, maybe I could ask the question. So it has to do with the apex sitting and the tests that we did and the homework you gave us to practice it with some people. Okay. And with two of my people, I had kind of weird results. And so I wanted to check in.
Got it. Okay,
and
cool.
Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's give a little, I'm going to give a little bit of context here, Anna. It's totally okay for sure. And let me give a little bit of context because not everybody here may be working with apex sitting. So give me a moment, Anna, and then we'll absolutely get to your question. So apex sitting, for those of you who've been through Inspired Beyond Anatomy, we talk about it in that course. We also talk about it in, where else? What other course do we talk about it in? I feel like it's in another one and I'm not coming up with the name of it right now. Lori's thinking hard too. I feel like I need to have an index of like all the, I know exactly who to ask for that too, by the way. Somebody who might be somebody else's buddy here. I'm just saying, somebody here who has a buddy who might be the perfect person to index the topics and all the courses. That said, we talk about it in Inspired Beyond Anatomy, and we use that apex sitting all throughout our beginning journey in the mastery program, which Anna is in. So the question's coming from either that course or from the mastery track, and it's okay if you're not in either, it's fine. The idea of apex sitting is how do we with Murph, how do we position the pelvis in the most neutral position and the most supported position while seated so that we can establish and maintain the 4 balanced curves of the spine? So if we have a neutral axial skeleton, my experience and my belief, my experience clinically and my belief because of that, is that we will mitigate most, if not all, of pain in someone's symptoms, someone's body, right? And the reason is because we're designed with perfect design, architecture, as Anna likes to call it. So if we have perfect architecture, divinely designed architecture, and we follow that design, there won't be any pain. So the first place that we start with that in our mastery track is in the position of the pelvis relative to the 4 balanced curves of the spine. And we call that in our method apex sitting. It's one of our patterns. And so we've been learning apex sitting, and now the question that's on the table today is, once I now know the reason why I'm doing this, and I know now how to do it, and now I've shared it with somebody, now I've got this feedback, what do I do with the feedback? Am I understanding the question, Anna? That's where we're at. Okay, look, we got everybody caught up. That's so great. That's so great. So if you guys have any questions, anybody who's here, or if you're watching on the replay and you have questions, oh, I just pulled Murph's hand off. He's now handless. My poor guy.
Hey, Gina, I have a quick question, and it's about this, and it's a little bit about messaging, about the why behind it. Like, so, and I jotted down, when we optimally align our body this way, specifically with apex sitting, it alleviates pain, or has the...
I would message you. So awesome question. And let me make sure I'm answering the question you're asking. Are you talking about why are we bothering, or you're asking how do I message it, the why to the client?
A little bit. No, I get the why we're bothering. It was like, I was also thinking about it with my peeps last night, like, what's in it for them? Like, why? Right. Like, why am I teaching this to you? Like, oh, it'll get you out. It'll do all these things. And I'm like, no, I need to know, like, the why, like, what's going to get them to, what's in it for me?
What's in it for me? Everybody wants to know that. What's in it for me? I love this question. So depending on who you're talking to, some or all of this will support. First off, whatever they've come to you with complaint-wise, they're not able to move, they have pain, they have limitations, they have restrictions, they can't resolve something, whatever it is that they specifically have come to you with, if you know that the absence of 4 balanced curves and an optimal aligned pelvis is the source of that, then your answer to them is your XYZ is stemming from not having this. So I want you to have this so you no longer have your X, Y, and Z. So the first way I would message to someone is specifically about them, for them, because of them. It's the best way you'll get their attention. So again, if you know that whatever their complaint is, their chief complaint or their restriction or their limitation or their symptom, if you know that that is coming from the absence of 4 balanced curves and an optimally aligned pelvis, then that's the easiest way to enroll them into why bother. Because your pain is coming from this, and so I want you to take away this so that you no longer have the pain, and here's how you do that. Is that clear for you, Lori?
It is, and I'm wondering, I'm just pondering how to, it again goes back to messaging in a group class where everybody's got a little bit of something different. And I think go ahead.
Yep. So in a group setting, but you might have more question there. In a group setting.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, you first.
No, you go. Yeah.
I'm going to settle it for both of you, because Lori and Jane have been exchanging tons of stuff on Facebook on this very question. So for Lori, I think it's more in the group setting, right, Lori? Like, how do you?
It's both. Where it's presenting right now is in group classes, but I wonder if. So, I mean, what I could do is, and Gina, certainly your feedback is like, we spend a good amount of time in seated meditation.
Okay. Great.
So that, you know what I mean? So maybe that's we do a good amount of time seated doing upper body work, right? Like so it could be that.
Okay, perfect.
What was your strategy?
Yeah, I'm just talking right over you because I'm so excited. Sorry to talk over you. Cool. I believe that in a group setting, whatever the one thing is that you're intending to impart on them mechanically, whatever the one mechanical new thing is today, you get to seed that throughout whatever they're doing as a group. As an example, if you're doing seated meditation, what's the purpose of meditation? I'm asking you, what's the purpose of meditation?
Right. And to quiet our mind.
Great. And what's the purpose of asana?
To move our bodies. Yeah, to move our bodies.
Relative to meditation, what is the purpose of asana?
Oh, to prep our bodies for meditation.
Great. So we can't meditate and get into our soul if our body is uncomfortable. This is why you need to have 4 balanced curves of your spine and apex sitting. Great. So there's seed plant number 1.
Yeah, got it.
And then just seed plant it throughout. If you're looking for ease in your lower body in downward dog, this is why we need to have your pelvis oriented in a neutral position so that it's not, so that the sensation you have is not pulling and tugging on body parts in the absence of this alignment.
Yeah.
If you're talking to somebody not in yoga, this is what we need for your body to be operating from mechanically so that you don't have pain and discomfort, because this is how you're designed. And in our daily life, we distort that design and press the limits an awful lot. And then if you can, catch them in the moment. For example, look at how you're sitting right now, right? And I mean, that's usually like 99% of the people you could catch them on it, right? You're like, see, right now, your lumbar curve is reversed, your pelvis is in a position that's not optimal for your balance and support, and that's going to eventually lead to the symptom that you brought to me today, the symptom that you experience most often. That time when you, once a year, I throw out my back, right? So you start to show them either like, this is the domino effect and how you get there, or this is exactly in the moment, this discomfort that you're feeling is because of this, or anything in between. So we know, we start with this pattern because we know it's tied to so many things. So it feels a little bit, I would imagine it feels like, well, there's so much to message. Like, what do I possibly message? That's the point. There's so much to message. How could you not? Because whatever they're bringing to you, you can tie it to this alignment. So yeah,
that's perfect. That was that little nugget is exactly right. Because I'm like, how is it? And because we were working on shoulder work and binds and what needs to be stable. And I'm like, oh, the spine needs to be aligned to stabilize. There it is. It's all clicking. Perfect. Thank you.
Yep. So what doesn't work in messaging, just to give us the other side of this, and I know this maybe from personal experience, so don't do what I did, do what I'm telling you now. What doesn't work in messaging is you really need to, or you really should, right? Nobody wants a finger waving at them, even if it's only in tone. Nobody wants that. So that doesn't work. So what you get to enroll them in is the benefit, what's in it for them by doing it, not what they shouldn't do or how they're doing it wrong or how their comfortable seated position is actually like super judged as being in, you know, like less than by you, the wise practitioner. Like that kind of energy doesn't work. So just be really thoughtful about that. And you are, and that's why you're asking, how do I message this? Because there's a way to message anything and enroll people in what you have to offer. And there's a way to message something and piss them off.
Yeah, I realized that I needed to be like specific enough that it's not like, oh, you'll feel better. I'm like, well, okay, great. Like we say that all the time in yoga, and it's such a, Judge, think it's a throwaway. It's a throwaway. People they want specifics.
Absolutely. And it's not a judgment to say it's a throwaway, Lori. We talk about that a lot in our mastery program, that if we're going to offer someone anything, we get to be super clear on the anatomy around it, the functional mechanics, and the why for them. Right. Just saying things to say them because it sounded really lovely one day when you heard it with no context about why you're saying it is actually inauthentic. It is a toss away comment. You're taking oxygen for no reason with no intention of what you're delivering, right? Or no clarity for the person who's receiving it. We get to be super clear and confident in our anatomy so that we can be in the other person's shoes and feel what it's like to receive our instruction. If we don't have enough bandwidth to be in their shoes, then it's all about us still. And now we're not in service, we're actually taking. So yeah, that's an expert level skill to message from that place for sure, instead of just toss away comments and expect people to follow you because you're the body expert in front of the room. That's a little arrogant, a little entitled, and it's really not the way humans work. So your distinction in the messaging is stellar. Absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. Okay, so did we answer the why would we bother? Are we good on messaging on the why would we bother? Why would we even be in a position to have someone doing apex sitting with us? We're all good with that. Anna, does that support you?
Yeah, I think for me, in the yoga classes, we don't do meditation. You know, it's more movement. And so what I've been you know, without saying it all the time, because I realize that when I learn something, I get so excited about it. So I just want to repeat it or share it with everybody, like all the time.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but you know, so remember the whole thing I had about stretching doesn't exist, right? And so, and because I'm black and white, so, you know, I think I shared, I laid on my mat and ordered my body to stretch and it wouldn't stretch.
Oh.
And that was so cool, right? It was so cool. So I realized when I did stretch all the muscles. So now, you know, I do that, like I've done it with everybody. Okay, so lay on the mat and tell your brain to stretch. And they go, oh, it doesn't stretch, you know? And so then I do action is contraction, you know, I blah, 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 blah. And it really sits. So coming back to the apex sitting, because this is now the new thing, right?
Yeah.
The new kid on the block. It's, you know, as we're moving through the postures, you know, I don't want to keep bringing that up, but in my own mind, it's like, is there neutral alignment truly in every posture? And I don't think there is.
Okay.
So that's kind of what I'm trying to work through in my own practice, you know, trying to figure out, you know, if I'm rotating a hip joint, do I still get to maintain neutral alignment of the four curves?
Are you thinking the answer is no, or are you asking if the answer is yes?
I'm thinking that the answer should be yes, but I think that the answer is no.
Okay, and so how do you think that shows up when you're teaching?
Well, and so this is why I'm sort of, you know, this week putting that aside, because I haven't figured it out yet. So right now it's showing up just fine in teaching, because until I can figure things out in my own brain, in my own body, I won't bring it.
Okay, so in what pose? So you said, Anna, that if you do rotation of the hip, so let's say, do you mean lateral rotation of the hip?
It doesn't, like pretty much anything, but let's stick to Warrior 2, because, you know, that was kind of my nemesis a little while ago.
Warrior 1 or 2?
Wasn't it? Oh, no, it was Warrior 1. Yeah, it was Warrior 1.
Which
with
one
the lateral rotation of the hip and the hyperextension of the, we're talking the back leg here. Yeah.
Okay, so you believe then that in Warrior 1, which is flexion of one hip and lateral rotation and extension of the opposite hip, you're suggesting that you can't have neutral alignment of the axial skeleton.
I'm suggesting that you probably should, but I haven't. I haven't figured out how
Oh.
it,
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. All right, great. So is there another position that you wonder if neutral
yeah,
alignment?
so let's do a simple thing like something that involves a spinal twist. So Utkatasana with actually a prayer twist, right? With a twist added. You know,
Yeah,
it happens in prayer. You know, elbow on the outside of one knee.
yeah. So twisting.
Yeah. So how does that work in a twist?
How does neutral alignment of the pelvis work in twisting?
Well, because I think about it as neutral alignment of the whole spine, right? Because we talked about in apex sitting, that's all four spines are in balance and therefore in neutral. So I guess I think about it as neutral alignment of the axial skeleton as opposed to neutral alignment of the pelvis. Maybe that I have the wrong distinction. I don't know.
No, you don't. No, you don't. Okay, so this is really, I love this question, by the way, because there was a time when I said neutral alignment of the axial skeleton is available in every single yoga position. And for those of you here who are listening who aren't yogis, it's okay. It just means any position of your body, right? It doesn't have to be yoga specific, but yoga is our medium of movement in the academy because it's a head to toe, all joint possibility, all joints on deck possibility. And that's the only movement practice that I know is consistently like that. So we use that as a medium of movement because there's more part of the body to play with. So think any movement anywhere in someone's life. There was a point in time when I said neutral alignment of the axial skeleton is available 100% of the time. And I wrote it in a chapter in my book, and my editor, who is a senior yogi, also as a side, happens to be a very, very skilled editor from New York City, came back to me and said, "Is that true?" And I said, "Yep." And she said, "What about this pose?" And I was like, oh shit. And there was only one pose, and it was cat pose.
Like as in cat cow?
Because you're literally creating a C curve and mitigating the four balance curves.
Well, what about then in cow? Well, no, in cat, you've got the thoracic, you're the mountain. But what about in cow then? Because you're really ideally, dropping the belly.
Right. So let's call it cat cow. It's two poses.
Yeah.
Let's call it cat cow, two poses. In every other pose, in every other yoga asana, I was able to express to her that it is possible to reach for a balanced axial skeleton, which is not the same as saying the axial skeleton doesn't move. And the piece of the distinction that I love about that is it helps us as instructors of movement get really refined on what's actually happening functionally and not let things get distorted because it's easy to distort.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. And that's where I'm kind of stuck right now. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So let's do the lunge first, because twisting is a different joint action, of course, on the spine. But let's do warrior one first, because that was the pose that you look how sad he is without a hand. I feel desperately sad for Murph. I don't know how to
let him know we love him, and it'll be okay.
We love you. Look at me when I'm talking to you. We love you. Okay, so warrior one. Would you say? Let's put his leg like this. So here's one hip in flexion. Okay. Whee! Need two more hands to play with Murph. Okay, so we have one hip in flexion, and we have the opposite hip in extension and lateral rotation.
Yeah.
Did that tilt the pelvis in either direction? Did it move the apexes forward or back, Anna?
It did not, from what you're showing me. It did not. However, for most people, they need to bend that back knee, because they either don't have the hamstring length, or Okay, so if they don't, for most people, if they don't bend that back knee, it's going to rotate that pelvis.
Okay, so rotating the pelvis doesn't mean it's not on the apexes.
Ah.
Here's the apexes. Here's the apexes. Here's the apexes. Here's the apexes. They're still balanced.
Okay, but I thought everything had to be like lined up.
Well, what you're hinting at though is not that there's a distinction here. It's that if I can't do lateral rotation of my hip, there's a muscular issue at this joint that then distorts everything else.
Right.
So what we want to address as practitioners is, why can't you do lateral rotation of that hip without bending your knee? What muscles do that joint action that aren't doing their joint action very well? Which now looks like an adaptation to a yoga pose or a position.
Yeah. Or
a modification, we call it in yoga. We don't want to adapt and modify unless there's a real pathology or something that you're healing from, like, you know, a trauma or surgery. We don't want to adapt and modify. That's perpetuating the restriction. So what we're learning is, what is the optimal alignment? What is the joint function in that optimal alignment? What muscles do that action? And now where's my work? Because if I can't do this without bending my knee, which is not a knee action, by the way, it's a hip joint action. If I can't do lateral rotation without adapting and modifying the movement somewhere and taking some of the muscles that are supposed to be doing the work out of the game by bending my knee, that's where the restriction is.
Right. Okay. The nugget that you gave me, because what I thought the axial alignment had to be, you know, like this all the time in any pose that we do. But where I was stuck was, you know, if the pelvis is rotating, then it's no longer lined up like this. But basically you're saying pelvis can rotate. Yes, it takes us out of that neutral axial alignment, correct? But
no, Anna, no, let me stop you because I don't want you to keep walking on that thought as if it's truth. I didn't say that in Warrior 1, it is okay to have the pelvis tilted. Because then in order to take your shoulders back to the front of the mat, you must create a twist here in the spine, which is not part of that pose.
Mm-hmm. No, I understand that. I got that part, but in other poses, let's say if the pelvis twists.
Well, we have to talk about each pose one at a time, because what we need to find out in the pose, Anna, is what's the joint action that's meant to be happening. Not what does it look like when someone does it, what's meant to be happening functionally, because there's not always the same. And that's what we're unveiling. So let's stick with Warrior 1 for one more minute, because this might really help. Okay, so just imagine that Murph's left hip is in flexion, okay? So we've got this going on here, lateral rotation of the hip. Okay, cool. But let's say that lateral rotation of the hip, which is a muscle action, is impeded somewhere in here. So what this person's body looks like on their mat is this. Their pelvis is facing 2 o'clock instead of 12 o'clock. A lot of times we allow that to just be what it is. This is all that's happening. And my invitation to us here is that now what we've done is we've created a twist in the low back that's not part of that pose. Right. So rather than modify it this way, keep the axial skeleton neutral, because there is no change in the axial skeleton in that pose, and make a modification down here. Maybe take out some of the lateral rotation, like, and you brought that up when we were in group training, turn the back toes to 12 o'clock instead of at 9 o'clock. So that what you're doing is just reducing the amount of lateral flexion here, lateral rotation, excuse me. You're reducing the amount of lateral rotation. You're not distorting the whole pose. By sending the pelvis in one direction, the shoulders in another, creating a twist in the low back and thinking we're still doing Warrior 1. We're not. We've added all other joint actions in here that aren't part of the pose. And that's how injury gets started. So better for me to keep this axial skeleton neutral in this pose, because it is, and just work on what's going on here or what's not going on here that's preventing lateral rotation to be fluid. And let me just work on that, because there's enough going on here in this joint, this 360 joint, that I should fix it and not let the low back take it all the time. This is the classic person who says, I do yoga 3 days a week, and they come in every week for massage with back pain and never tie the two together because they're using their low back when they shouldn't be. Okay.
Yeah, brilliant.
Okay. Okay.
So
now,
just to summarize. Okay.
Great. Yep.
If there were a pose, or if there was some kind of movement where everything is lined up except the pelvis does need to turn. So I could be, I don't know, like that. Let's say that I'm like, yeah, pretty hard to just turn the pelvis without turning the torso. I guess what I'm trying to understand is, so long as the apexes are in and the pelvis are in neutral, it doesn't mean that the pelvis has to be lined up right underneath the rest of the spine.
Well, it would only not be lined up under the spine in a twist. And even then, you still strive for neutral alignment. So in the example that you're coming up with, I would need to hear a pose from you. Like, what are you thinking? When would that be true, that the pelvis wouldn't be in neutral alignment?
Well, that's what I'm trying to, work with all this week is like, when am I thinking, you see, because notwithstanding that I'm like a pretty senior teacher, I've never done this shit that you're just opening my eyes to. Like, it's just phenomenal that all of my training has somehow missed all of this. And I don't mean shit. I pardon for that because I think it's just gold. But like now I feel like I'm just back to square one, and I've got to really, which is good, but I've got to now really, I don't have an answer for you.
Okay, that's all right, darling. And here's the thing, Anna, most people in stage 1 of mastery have shared with me some message or another that what they got to do was let go of the horror that, oh my God, I've been ineffective up until now. It's not true. You're just learning something new. And thank God. Would you want to be in a program where I wasn't teaching you something new out of the gate?
No.
Right. So it's all perfect in that way. So just take the worry, judgment, ego part of it out, and don't worry about what you have or haven't done up until now in your career. Be grateful that you got yourself here, because you did. You got yourself here. I didn't drag you, right? Okay. So cool. Let's think about seated spinal twist.
Yeah.
And for those of you who don't do yoga, seated spinal twist, put yourself in a seated position and cross your leg over the other. Like, just cross your legs like you're sitting. In that position, how likely is it that you rock to one side of your pelvis? Typically the side that isn't doing the crossing over.
Huge. And you don't have that sit bone anywhere close to the ground.
Right. Now we're talking, should the apexes be balanced? Or what does it do to the spine? So if I'm seated and I'm about to twist, or excuse me, I'm just going to cross my leg over the other, and this is what happens to my pelvis, then what has to happen to my spine for my shoulders to be parallel? Right. Now I have lateral flexion of the spine, which is not part of the pose. I'm supposed to be twisting my spine. How can I twist my spine when it's laterally flexed? Oh, you can, and you can do some disc damage. It's the same outcome as the Jolly Joe in Warrior One with back pain at the end of his yoga class 3 days a week. His low back took it instead of using the joints the way they're designed. So in this position, I'm seated with my legs crossed. Before you ever twist, are your legs crossed? What are you doing? When your legs are crossed and your pelvis rocks to the side that's the base, what do you instruct someone before you get them to twist?
Yeah, absolutely. Find your sit bones.
Now that you know apex sitting,
find your sit bones evenly as if you were sitting on sand and you were imprinting the same way.
Perfect. Okay, so now let's say that takes them back to here. But now in the details of apex sitting, which some of us have while we're here and some of us don't, it's okay if you don't have it, just hang tight. But Anna, you know it. So here we are on apex sitting. but this Jolly Joe rolled himself back, equal apexes in the sand, and then also sent his apexes to the index finger. Do you
Right.
twist him yet?
No.
No, why? What's it doing to the lumbar spine if his pelvis is in that position?
Well, if he's onto the index finger, then he has, his tail feathers are up, for lack of a better.
What's his lumbar spine doing? If his apexes are on the index finger, what are his lumbar vertebrae? Right. Just like in regular seated. Most of us set our belly button to our spine and we slouch. Our lumbar curve moves back and touches the chair that we're sitting on.
Yeah.
Literally the opposite of how it's designed.
Yeah.
You don't want to be twisting on top of that. You don't even want to be sitting that way, let alone twisting. So do you reach for balanced curves in a seated spinal twist, even when you're twisting? Yes. And actually quite before, if you're doing it safely, for sure. Most instruction in twisting in yoga does not involve all that. One, because they don't know it, and two, because it takes a lot of time. You got to slow everybody way down to get all that organized.
Yeah, for sure.
Yoga tends to move. All movement classes move. That's the point. It's not, unless it's hatha, you're moving, which is why folks get hurt while they're moving and then come to massage at the end of the week, moaning and groaning, and that's rinse and repeat. Because if the massage therapist doesn't know movement, they're just as culpable as the yoga teacher or Pilates instructor or personal trainer that doesn't know movement. We don't know what's causing the pain. So how can we stop it? Both parties, manual and movement, get to know about this type of function and retrain people.
Yeah.
If our business is getting people out of pain. If your business is something different when you teach yoga, I am not throwing shade. Then you probably aren't even here listening, because that's not our community. Our community of practitioners mitigates pain and alleviates it at the source. We don't just rub it away or stretch it away.
Okay.
Are there questions, Anna? Other questions? Did we cover it all?
Yeah, we didn't cover it on the so on the apex sitting. Can I go back to the questions?
Yes.
Then,
oh yeah, from the feedback. Yeah.
So the feedback. So one of my people has is it called what is it called when she's got quite a lumbar curve, like quite a lumbar curve.
It's excessive, exaggerated.
Yeah.
Lordosis.
I was going to say lordosis, and I think I'm saying it wrong. Isn't it funny how I'm really doubting myself now on everything I seem to know?
It's one thing to be open-minded. It's another thing to be in doubt. Only you know the difference. I only recommend one of them.
I know, because you're a cheerleader. But it's funny how I'm noticing how much I'm doubting myself now. But that's okay.
Well, the other piece of it, I'm just going to add, is my cheerleader is going to add, it doesn't matter if it's called lordosis because we don't diagnose people.
Right.
Because as soon as we put a label on it, it's a fix. So it doesn't matter what it's called. We just know that it's not balanced.
Right. So she could not find her index fingers at all. She could find her ring fingers. She couldn't find her index fingers at all. And then when she finally sort of found them and we got to her middle finger, she needed to engage her quads in order to be able to stay in neutral. I even had her try her feet on the blocks, but that elevated her knees too much. And then I tripled the blanket and that sort of kept her knees neutral. And I'm just curious as to whether it has something to do with her lordosis. I couldn't get her out of that. I couldn't get her out of not contracting her quads.
Okay. First things first, on apex sitting, if you're not positive that they start with pressure on 3 and can equally understand somatically one from the other, if you're not positive when you start, don't bother going further.
Oh.
Because if you don't start from them being able to articulate their pelvis and sense where their apexes are, everything after that is irrelevant.
But you see, we had done apex. So I had her on the mat first, not apex. We did pelvic tilts. first on the mat. And not only did we do pelvic tilts the way most people do them, which is on an exhale, your whole lumbar flattens. I also, after we do that one, I have them do pelvic tilts where they're maintaining their lumbar in neutral. So then the movement is smaller and it comes more from the pelvis. So we had done all that and she's good at doing that. So I was surprised.
Yeah, well, I love the startup, and that sounds like a really healthy place to start, and it doesn't oppose gravity.
Right.
Sitting upright opposes gravity, which is a whole other host of muscles that doesn't have to happen when they're laying down. It's a great place to start. It's a great place to start. I love how you started her. Brilliant. And it doesn't automatically mean that apexes 90 degrees from the earth are going to automatically click because supine was perfect. Doesn't automatically translate.
Okay.
And in sitting, what's the main muscle? What's the joint action in sitting that's not happening? What's the hip? What's the hip joint action?
Flexion.
Yep, flexion of the hip. But what's the muscle that does that? Main guy.
Psoas.
Yep. What's his helper be?
I guess the femoris.
Rectus femoris, right, which is one of the quads. So when you're telling me, yeah, but still, I'm not going to start hunting after the psoas and the quads if I don't know if she's on her apexes. It's a goose chase. But if she had been on her apexes and had absolutely found her middle finger, and that's the muscle that screamed that it needed help, I would believe it. But we don't know that she was on her apexes because it was a little hazy starting.
But if she was, because she said she did find it at the end, we worked like for way longer than the 90 seconds several times. And so if she's still feeling the quads, is it because of her lordosis?
Well, here's the thing. What I just heard you say is she found her apex at the end. And what you get to do is have them find the apex at the beginning. You align the bones first, then you engage the muscles before you decide what's going on functionally. That's our formula. She wasn't aligned yet. We don't know if she was on the apexes at the beginning to ever get any information from the muscles that's clear.
But at the end, let's say the last couple of times we did it, she said she found her middle finger and could feel all three, but was still feeling the quad engaging.
Was she feeling the middle finger after feeling the index finger?
She said, yes, but I don't know. At that point, I thought, are you just saying it because your hands are getting tired and sore?
Possibly. So then you get to take her out because now you're wasting each other's time.
Right.
And I mean that in the most like loving way. Like we want to be effective. We don't want to waste our time or theirs. We don't want to spin ourselves around like a top for 60 minutes and then get money at the end of it and wonder if we earned it. Because that's the way to erode your confidence. Like, I don't know, was I effective? I don't know, but the hour's over. I spun like a top. I don't know what I created in that hour, but I spent an hour with her. That's wasting your time and eroding your confidence. And it's not delivering on your intention for your client to get them out of pain. So if we're not clear on something, the most loving thing we can do for us and them is to stop, recalibrate, start again. Not to keep going down a cloudy road and not knowing if we're at the end of the road. I don't know, are we at the end of the road? Well, I don't know. I had a light on my car. So it seemed like we were at the end of the road. Oh, time's up. We're at the end of the road. Okay, bye. Like that's not the way to run your session. You don't feel good at the end of that. Psychically, you feel like troubled at the end of that because you didn't deliver. So just stop. Just be like, okay. Here's what we're going to do. Go ahead and stand up. Have them do something else. If you think her fingers are tired, you're probably right, Anna. Her fingers probably were tired. So she's going to just be like, come on, time's ticking. Let's go. So stand her up, do something else. Do a freaking headstand if that's what it takes to change her perspective. Whatever it takes, do something else. There's something else her body could use from you always, because we are full package. And then bring her back to apex sitting when her brain has, the equivalent of wipe the whiteboard clean. Start again, but don't keep going at something sort of.
Right.
You fatigue both of you. It's not worth it.
Right. Okay, that's really good advice. So my second one, you see, I did it with 2 people and had my first 2 and had lovely experiences. So I thought I was teaching it correctly and I thought everything was tickety-boo. And so my last 2 were like, and I know that I've learned a lot. I guess my thing with Lynn was, was it her lordosis that made it difficult?
We don't know. We don't know because she wasn't on the apexes. And so here's what I want to offer you, Anna. It's not that you did or didn't know what you were doing. It's amazing that you practiced on 4 people. That's why I asked you guys to do 5 people. First 2 can be home runs. And the third one, you're like, oh my God, what do I not know yet? Great. That's why you worked on 3 people, so that you could know all of them instead of just the first 2 that were easier or more somatically in touch or whatever. Like, you don't know the differences, but there's differences. We are not experts until we worked 10,000 hours, which I would say is 10,000 bodies. So 4, come on, you're still just starting and you're doing great. Doing great, right? So don't like throw yourself under the bus because the third one threw you a wrench. Third one gave you a gift so you could be better.
Yeah, and I totally agree, which is why I said to Lori, can I bring these questions? Because so thank you, Lori, for giving me that, window. But my 4th person also.
Okay, let's hear it. Let's hear what happened.
So my 4th person said, honestly, I kept a straight face. I have perfect alignment.
Great.
All the time. Okay.
Great.
I sit perfectly all the time. So I'm like,
fantastic.
I'm like, great. So let's, just humor me. Let's just. So I did the apex seat sitting, and he found his his index, his ring fingers, and found his middle. And so I asked him for feedback when he, according to him, was on his middle, and he's like, yeah, same as I always feel. And what I could see is that his chest was forward. So he was like this, as if, his chest was absolutely forward in what he considered to be perfect alignment. Now, I know that he's got SI issues. Okay. So while he was sitting like that, I felt his QLs, and I said, can you feel how engaged your Q? He knows things like.
You usually can't. Unless someone's putting pressure, you usually can't.
Right, but I could feel them, right? And I said, your QLs are really engaged in this position, and we talked about how the QLs work, and maybe that's contributing to the SI pain that you have on a regular basis. By the way, this is my brother, so I don't work on him because it's my brother. But he thinks he's such a hot shot with, I've got perfect alignment. So I had him. It was really interesting that this is how he considers to be perfect alignment all the time. And I thought, oh my God, that's brilliant, because what a great gift you've given me. Like, you think you've got perfect alignment, and you're telling me you don't feel any difference. So let's see what happens if we just kind of find that middle finger again and just sit back into, find that middle finger, just sit back. And he eased back into it. His QL was no longer super tense. And he was, oh, I feel lighter. I feel like I could stay here much longer.
Great. Perfect. So what's your question? It sounds like a
huge... because he thought so what happens when somebody comes to you where they're saying, I sit perfectly all the time, I've got perfect alignment. And I'm like, you don't. I felt that was like territory that maybe I wasn't. I just got tripped up on him thinking he had perfect alignment and me visually seeing that he clearly doesn't.
Okay, so part of the reason why you got tripped up, Anna, is because you're still working on your authority. Instead of worrying about what they think and how you're going to say it and how am I going to deliver it in a way that they're going to understand that I'm here for them instead of not at them? Like, that's all coming, right? So give yourself a minute, and it's cool. And amazing that your visual assessment was that spot on. So cool. And there's more patterns to go, right? So there's more for you to learn, right? We're a month in, so there's much more to go for sure. And the feedback that you got from his body was the key, that he gets to feel light and at ease opposing gravity instead of burdened and working and labored. So that's the message for him. And it sounds like there gets to be a why would you bother? But we didn't, he's your brother, you didn't have an intake, you don't even know what he's working on. It was a body that you were familiar with the person and you could go for it, which is great. That's a perfect person to practice on as well. And when we do that, we learn why it's so important to get connected with the client's intention. Because if we don't know their history and we don't know their intention, how do you give them feedback? They haven't asked you for it.
Okay.
The only thing, it was about messaging and setting the stage, which is not about apex sitting. It's a different skill that you bring to the table while you're showing someone apex sitting.
Oh, that's
I think sorry. And I think it goes back to what you said about with our conversation, it's like, well, what are you coming with? Well, Anna, you said that he was coming with, I think you said like lower back pain. If he's sitting optimally all the time, there shouldn't be any lower back pain. So tying it back to that.
Yeah, if I had a client who came to me with SI joint dysfunction and I thought that apex sitting was what they needed, and they said, oh, but I sit with perfect posture, I would say, great, then this will go really quickly. I wouldn't be dissuaded by them thinking it's perfect, and I'm like, but it's not, but you think it is, but I wouldn't care. I'd be like, great, we'll move quicker then. But I still know you need apex sitting because I know functional anatomy and I can see it. I wouldn't say the last part out loud to them. I would just come with that knowing and be like, great, then it'll be easy. Cool. I wouldn't doubt that. The doubt is where you're still developing, which is beautiful because when you get it, whoo, baby.
They still get to have it, whether they think they have it or not.
Exactly.
Everybody gets it.
Everybody gets it if they need it. Yeah, absolutely. Beautiful.
Yeah, but why? Okay, if they need it, why? Let me just think about that. Why wouldn't they? Are you talking about a specific, like if they're coming in for, I'm going down the rabbit hole. Why? Is that part of kind of picking and choosing what you're going to focus on, whether you get, okay, there it is. Took me a second.
Does everybody get to be upright in the apexes of their sit bones for optimal sitting? Yes. Does everybody get that every session all the time?
Right. Gotcha.
Because yes, they might need 16 things today. And I got time for 3. Which one am I going to pick? On your brother, it might not be apex sitting because he's already upright. For him, it might be something else that would move the needle much further. So that instead of him having a feeling of lightness, which I want everyone to have opposing gravity, believe me, but instead of him leaving with the feeling of lightness that he could take or leave, I would give him the sensation of something else like, whoa, because it'll move the needle more for him. So does he need apex sitting? Everybody probably does. Is that one of the top 3 that I would pick for him in an hour session? Maybe not. Which doesn't mean, Anna, that you did something wrong with him. It's just, when would you choose apex sitting? Because I did say if they need it. And yes, all people need it. So then how is there an if in there? Because it depends on what you're up to that day.
Right. And what we're up to right now is teaching all people apex sitting.
Right. So right now, everybody's game.
Everybody gets apex sitting right now.
Everybody gets it.
Yeah.
And so we learn the next thing, and then it's like,
right. And then we can start to pick and choose what we want. Yeah, gotcha.
That's it. Perfect. Great. Okay, my darlings. Well, this was super fun, Anna. You were like, I was vibing you today. I was like, I'm talking joint action today. I'm talking joint action all through the month of August, I thought. And then I got a request of like, could we ask mastery questions? I was like, to follow what I wanted to talk about today? Yeah. Absolutely. But you can always come and ask mastery questions. It just happened to be that we were fully in sync, which just tickled me. So that was great. In the last few minutes that we have, are there any other pressing questions that I haven't covered today? Anything else on your mind? Shelly, how was all that landing for you? Was that good? Yes? Awesome. So glad. I'm throwing Murph's hand around. I don't feel responsible for his hand, so I'm keeping it close to my heart.
Shelly, Shelly,
Yeah.
what's your movement modality? I feel like it's only us, and I know that there's more people involved, but since I see you, I'm curious what you.
Actually, I'm a physical therapist doing home care.
Oh, rock on.
And I'd like to transition into more outpatient. I'd like to change what I'm doing, essentially.
Oh.
Cool.
Yeah. So I've done some yoga, but I certainly wouldn't know anything about teaching it. And and I totally get the trying to do something and having it not work and being frustrated that I'm not getting where I want to go, and don't want to be there, don't want to do that. So I appreciate, Gina, what you were saying. And yeah, you totally described how it is when you're in that place and you don't know when to stop. Because sometimes I take way more time than I actually have trying to get to the place that I want to go to, likely not actually getting what I want. So.
Yeah, I totally hear it. And you're not alone in that, Shelly. And I'll leave you guys with this. While the body is the most magical playground that I know of on the planet, with all of its complexities and nuances and so much that we don't know, we know there's more that we don't know than we do know, even those of us who are very well studied. With all of that, it is relatively easy to bring someone back to their design. So if it feels like you are Sisyphus pushing a boulder uphill for the entirety of your session, you get to change your course. It's not the body. Because it's really easy for the body to be like, oh, thank God. Right? You brought me back to where there is no more struggle. There is no more pain. There is no more compensatory restriction or resistance because I'm afraid that I'm going to go too far or too, whatever the body is going through. The body is really tolerant. We mistreat it a lot. And if it gave us symptoms every time we did something that was off, we would all be insane because our nervous system would have so much input to navigate. So we get to be really compassionate and not push the body so hard to try to remedy it because it's already being pushed on a daily.
Right.
And keeping that in mind, it should be relatively easy. You should see the body go with you. You should feel yield. Your clients should feel what your brother said, Anna. Oh, it's easier. It's lighter. It's like, oh, freedom at last. These are the types of pieces of feedback that we want to be looking for, or we're going in the wrong direction for that moment. Doesn't mean you chose something wrong. It just means the body's like, could we just take a detour real quick here before we get back on the freeway? Can we just have a potty break? That's all the body's saying. So just listen, listen, because it's telling you.
Yeah, I love that about if I'm not clear on something, the best thing to do, I jotted this down for everyone, is to stop.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that.
Just recalibrate.
Like you said, reset, stop. Shift my being. Yep. Thank you.
And listen to what the body has to say, because it's playing with you. It's there. It's responsive and all the things. Okay. So no more Sisyphus. Everybody gets to be at ease. Thank you all so much for showing up and for contributing. Thanks for bringing juicy questions, Anna, so we can dive into all the things. We hear you, Shelly. There you go. Okay, awesome. So we're back again every Tuesday, noon Eastern, live. You're welcome to join us live. If you're watching on the replay, leave us a comment. Let us know what your aha and your takeaway was. Love hearing those a lot. And in the meantime, between now and next week, continue to do great work in the world.